Hey cousin, welcome to CoCo Conjure. Here we talk about all things hoodoo, folklore, magic, wellness, and spiritual journeys. My goal is to provide a foundation for the novice and inspiration to the advanced practitioner. If you have not guessed already, my name is CoCo. Cousin, I am so blessed that you have found me. I checked the analytics for the audio releases of my podcast, and oh my God, so many cousins have found me. We're talking from both sides of the Mississippi to the far north and Canada. I even have cousins across the Atlantic listening in. So wherever you are from, please subscribe and follow the podcast, and be sure to leave a like and a 5-star review. I promise you I will earn it. So I've been on the Reddit boards as one does, and I came across this post in one of the Conjure boards. It reads, "It's been my goal for this year to move forward with a hand. I've read many books on the topic, but I think they've left me a bit more confused about the topic than when I began. Unfortunately, I'm not lucky enough to have anyone in my family that practices, but the idea is something that I've naturally gravitated towards in recent years. Before I ask my questions, let me state that I am Black American all the way, as in my people have been in America forever on both sides of the family." Then our cousin went on to ask about creating hands in hoodoo and what's the best course of action here. But I got to tell you guys, I got stuck in this question. I got stuck on the whole idea that they're reading, and it's a little confusing. If you've been here before, cousin, you know that I was not born a hoodoo, and my practice is pieced together by folklore, grandma stories and family lore, academic texts from those who dared to write it down, and watching modern day practitioners as they practice. And in all the things I've read, I've never come across someone definitively saying that you have to have your jackball or packet or mojo or totem, or as this cousin refers to them, a hand created by someone else first. I've read that you can inherit a hand. I've heard that you can get them created by a practitioner, but I've never heard it was a necessity that your first one was created by someone else and had to be given to you. I kind of feel like it's the whole tarot card thing. Somehow in the witch sphere, not necessarily in the conjure sphere, but definitely in the witchy sphere of things, somehow a rumor got started that you have to have your first tarot deck gifted to you, which, I mean, it's preposterous, right? Because what if you're interested in tarot or you are in need of a mojo, but there's no one around to gift it to you? There's no one around to buy it from. And it sounds like this cousin is in that predicament. They are away from the land of the free and the home of the brave, and they have no one as a mentor or a place to go talk shop outside of Reddit, and they're in need of a mojo, right? So just to answer their question, my advice to this cousin was to go forth and create their own, right? You got to create your own mojo, as they have to do, the best they can with what they have. It is the way of folk magic, especially in hoodoo. Cunning is a need. Resourcefulness is a honed skill. You do work when work needs to be done. And bit, bap, boop, that's it, right? The hand that they create will be the first in its line of hands to be passed on to someone else later. Like there always had to be an originator. There always had to be a starting point. And since there's no one around to have mentorship from, there's no one around to talk to, or even to get one created by someone, then you're going to have to trial and error that piece. You're going to have to figure it out on your own, and then you can pass yours down to someone else. That's just kind of how that works, I think. But that's not the topic of this episode. Again, let's go back to that topic of research and study, because I asked this cousin for a reference because, I'm always looking for something new to read and to get a different perspective. And by no means do I think I know everything there is to know about every conjure, every hoodoo, every, whatever technique, initiation. I know that I don't know everything. So I wanted to read what they read. I wanted to get their perspective. And this cousin said that they read the works and were only able to get the works of Miss Catherine Yorwood from Lucky Mojo. And somewhere in that, grouping of books, the suggestion was to get your first hand from a tried and true worker. Okay, now listen. I already know that some of you are going to say, Catherine Yorwood of Lucky Mojo is a woman not born to the culture and has made absolute, gazillions of dollars selling it without the input of the voices of the very culture, she's selling off. And you know what? I don't have any skin in that fight. And I said before, I'll say again, I don't have my head in the sand when it comes to non-Black Americans in the hoodoo space. Clearly, she's not like plantation style hoodoo. Clearly she's not the Black granny from the church with the wide brim hat. But from what I understand, she was taught by people who are traditional and was in the room with people that made things happen, way back in the day. And, she's been in the game much longer than me. So, I got no skin in that fight. It's also arguable that Yorwood's style of hoodoo is perhaps the loudest, kind of like Avi from Hoodoo Delish. It's, they're easy to access and it's everywhere when you first start to look into hoodoo, look into conjure, However, it's not the only way to hoodoo, right? And there are sources, be it traditional or modern or unconventional, that are out there that can really impact your practice. I will say this though, before I move on, I have never read a single Lucky Mojo book. Never read a single book, never purchased a hand, a oil, a candle from them, like at all. I have been on their website and I've used it as like a source for topics to look into. Until I eventually found my way around somewhere else. So like, for example, they'll have a list of influential people in hoodoo. So, as long, and then I'll take that list and I will, go and research them somewhere else. Go pick up a book, use it as like a reference guide to search somewhere else. I know that sounds crazy, but I did with that. I do that with botanical websites. Like I don't just take their information for word. I have to go look at it somewhere else as well. So, as long as you know who it is you're listening to, where you're getting your information from, you take what you need and then you leave the rest you don't need. Right. So that kind of led me to today's episode topic, which is a hoodoo's library, CoCo's Conjure collection. I'm going to give you a list of the books that I've read that I find helpful. And, just give you a little mini review on each one and why I found them helpful. If you look in the show notes, you'll probably already see, if you've already looked, you'll see a list of the books that I'm going to talk about and their authors. First, I have to say that before I read a book on Conjure, I look into who wrote the book. This is going to upset some people, but I don't worry about the race of the person who wrote the book. Instead, I worry about the authenticity. I worry about the authenticity of the point of view, right? So if this person is an academic, what do they teach? Is their book a dissertation or an accumulation of their academic study, right? Is the person a practitioner? So they're a practitioner and they are academic. If so, what is their niche? And what is the book? Is the book about their niche? How long have they been in the game? Are they true American conjure, folk magic people? Are they writing from an outside perspective? Like those are the things I look at. And by looking at it that way, I am able to take the things I need and leave the stuff I don't. Right? I learned this because some of the first books I picked up were an absolute dud. For example, and I will say this loud. I don't care if this hurts people's feelings. Helping Yourself with Magical Oils A to Z by Maria Solomon is a useless book. it's useless. And if I'd have just looked into the book a little bit, I wouldn't have wasted my money. Basically, it's just, the whole book is just a list of oil names. That's it. No recipes to build from, no theory on how to make your own oils, no instructions on the actual step-by-step process of making oils. It's just a list of oil names that mean absolutely nothing if you don't practice and you don't know how to get a hold of that oil. So if you come across Helping Yourself with Magical Oils A to Z by Maria Solomon, do not buy it. Cousin, don't purchase it. It's not worth it. Another author that I almost got burned by, but I did not get burned by this person, was Maria Silva. I'm pretty sure Maria Silva isn't a real person. Either that, or it's like a name that a variety of ghostwriters work under, or all their books are AI generated, something. Because most authors writing on occult practices, whatever they are, have a niche, right? They threw themselves into a few traditions, and they are writing about their experiences, their theories, the historical context, so on. Maria Silva has written books about Hoodoo and Norse paganism and Kabbalah and Orisha's cousin. If you name an occult topic, Maria Silva has a book on it. And to me, that's a red flag. Like, that's a total flag on the play. I'm not saying people can't be collectors of information. I myself am a collector of information. I'm just saying, why would I want to learn from someone who is a jack of all trades and shows no authenticity or deep understanding to a single tradition? Right. So, yes, I have books in my library about Norse paganism. Yes, I looked into, deeper study into Wicca when I was working more Wicca adjacent. But that's not what this podcast is about. And I'm not going to start a podcast about Wicca or Norse paganism. Right. Like, it's just not it's not where I have some sort of expertise or skill. Like, I would never do that. And if I wrote a book, I would never write about them. So, like, that's a flag on the play to me. When someone is writing about every single occult topic you can think of, I don't want it. Okay, so by no means is this list I'm about to give all of the books in my collection. I have others. I'm just going to give you the ones that were most influential in my practice, especially when I first started. So let's get started. What's in my library? Let's enter CoCo's library. Let's get the soft music playing. Let's get the fire roaring. Everyone grab a cup of tea. Let's get into it. So the first two books are ones that are academic in nature and put Hoodoo in like a historical context. So when I was trying to piece together a timeline of Hoodoo in this country and get an understanding of my people, I did two things. First, I asked my grandma some questions. She's a living legend. She's, 10 minutes down the street from me. Let me go sit with her and ask her some questions. Then I turned to people talking about Hoodoo from a historical perspective. I turned to, first, Professor Yvonne P. Chireau. She's got a lot of interviews online that you can listen to, and I picked up her book, Black Magic, Religion, and the African American Conjuring Tradition. Professor Chireau's book started out as a doctoral dissertation before blooming into a full manuscript. Cousins, her book is an exploration of the cross-section between religion and magic as it relates to African American spiritual practices, and also about how the first blacks in this country used that practice to reclaim some sort of autonomy over their lives. Black Magic is the book that opened my eyes to the fact that all those weird and not quite biblically Christian things, that the people of my grandmother's generation did were considered Hoodoo. It's the one that made me go, oh, this is where I belong. I belong in Hoodoo. It also gave me topics to talk to my grandmother about. And if you've heard the episode Grandma's Faith, you'll hear that, I uncovered this thread of conjure that still runs into my family's veins. And I'm not going to lie. Black magic, religion, and the African American conjuring tradition is a dense book to read. It's not large, it's just dense with information. This is one of those books where you get your highlighter out and you get your sticky notes and you have a conversation with the text as you read it. And I feel like engaging with the text in that way, because it's so dense, will help you get so much more out of it. It's totally worth the read. Just give yourself some time to read it. Like, don't feel like you have to rush through it, is what I'm saying. The second, academic style text that I picked up on the history of Hoodoo is Mojo Workin by Katrina Hazzard Donald. Professor Hazzard Donald explores Hoodoo as a religious practice without the Christian framework. She argues that at some point there was a transitional point in Hoodoo where it must have just kind of stood on its own, as well as draws some parallels to West African traditional religious practices. She explores the ring shout as a spiritual dance. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen that. Check out YouTube, type in ring shout. It's amazing to watch. She talks about Hajan the Conqueror as a man and a spirit. And she actually tries to trace it back to who Hajan was. And also she talks about how the commercialization of Hoodoo has really changed the practice from plantation style to traditional. And that's another thing. If you ever hear me talk about plantation style Hoodoo and traditional Hoodoo and modern Hoodoo, you have Professor Hazzard Donald to thank for that. She doesn't outright define the terms the same way I do, but her look at Hoodoo during the Great Migration and post-World Wars really helped me to contextualize and understand how Hoodoo has changed from plantation to now. Her book also helped me to really, think about how commercialized my practice is. She calls out people like Starr, Casas, who I'm going to talk about later. She calls out Lucky Mojo as being people who are in the space but not of the culture. She calls them out. And she also talks about how the commercialization of Hoodoo really kind of, pulled us away from the roots of it all, pulled us away from understanding the plants we use, of really honoring the plant spirit or the root spirit or whatever it is we're using. And I found that really inspired me to make sure that I grew my own stuff. I poured my own wax. I worked from as much as scratch. I worked from scratch as much as possible. Truly great book. Okay. The next section in CoCo's Conjure collection is about fieldwork and anthropology. So the first one I want to talk about is Hoodoo, Conjuration, Witchcraft, and Rootwork by Harry Middelton Hyatt. Cousin, this is the big daddy anthropology text on Hoodoo. So Hyatt's informants were all Black Americans from mostly from the southern part of the country. We're talking Alabama, the Carolinas, Florida, Louisiana, my home state of Maryland, etc. Katrina Hazzard Donald says that the text is marred by the need for performance on behalf of Middelton's informants. Middelton is a white preacher who is going around asking people about hoodoo spells. Of course, the Black folks are going to give him the most outlandish ones they got. It's a pitfall of anthropology, if you will. But I would not throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one. Anything and everything that you could possibly want to know about Hoodoo, Conjuration, Witchcraft, and Rootwork, and how people practiced it, down to their actual spell work, down to the work they did, is listed in this set of books. I'm not gonna lie, it's overwhelming. There's no way to finish it and study it, because remember, when it comes to academic text, you study it like you're in a college course. Right? You got to get the highlighter, you got to get the sticky notes, you have to really understand what's being said to you. You can't just let it wash over you. And this isn't like, there's no way. It's 5 volumes, and each tome is like 1,000 pages long. So instead, I use it as a resource guide. I know that sounds weird, but so far I've kind of stayed in the first volume mostly, and used the index to help steer me to any information or details I want to know. For example, in the episode Color and Hoodoo, I literally went to the index, found where they talked about Color and Hoodoo, and then turned to page 2585 and read it. You know what I mean? Went a little before, so I had some context, went a little after, so I had some context, but read that section. This is also what makes this text so great is that it has actual spells in it. Like, it has actual work that's being done in it, and he doesn't edit. That's why it's so long. He just lets the people talk, and he records what they say. That's it. So if they talk about, an ammonia bath, and they stutter 5 times and go back around and around to talk about this ammonia bath, and that's what happens. But at least now you have a full spell working on how to do a cleansing bath with ammonia, right? Okay, so here's the thing. If you look on Amazon, you are not going to find this book or this set of books. It'll be listed, and then it'll be like, it'll be like volume 4 out of stock. But you won't find it. I'm going to be honest here. I was sent this link in an email from a friend's cousin's long lost sister. Because I was asking around about it after I saw, again, influential people in Hoodoo. I saw it on Lucky Mojo's website. I wanted to read it for myself. I didn't really care about her synopsis, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So again, a friend's cousin's sister's boyfriend sent me a link. Like, I had to work for this. So if you can find it online as a PDF, even if it's just the first volume, it's definitely worth getting your hands on. It's good stuff. Be prepared to be overwhelmed, but just know that you don't have to read the thing from cover to cover. You can just take what you need as you need it and go back to the resource. Now, a book that you can easily get your hands on, or at least a text, I should say, that you can easily get your hands on and is much easier to digest, is Zora Neale Hurston's Hoodoo in America. A lot of people don't know that Zora Neale Hurston was more than just a fiction writer. She also wrote anthropology texts, Tell My Horse and Of Mules and Men, and Hoodoo in America. The short work Hoodoo in America can be found in the Journal of American Folklore, volume 44, published in 1931. If you haven't known before, know now. I think really highly of Miss Hurston's work. Her Hoodoo in America collection reads like a grimoire, basically. She tells you who's who, from Haiti to New Orleans to Florida. She tells you where they learned from, if they have a religious framework. Are they Catholic? Are they Protestant? Do they have no religious framework? And then she gives some notable works that she learned from each practitioner, and talks about, what they accomplished, how they're connected. If you cannot get your hands on Hoodoo in America, because I'm trying to think, again, I think that was sent to me as a link. Either it was sent to me as a link, or I had to go on JSTOR, which is free to access if you're in America. JSTOR, and typed in Zora Neale Hurston, and some of her stuff came up. But if you can't get your hands on Hoodoo in America, then you can try and purchase her book Mules and Men. The back quarter of Mules and Men is like the light version of Hoodoo in America. Like it's you know, it's a smaller version of that. The first 3/4 of Hoodoo in America, the first 3/4 of Mules and Men, I should say, are all folklore and dance and black excellence. So it's still worth buying. But it amazes me how many people don't talk about the fact that Zora Neale Hurston literally has a grimoire out there. And she was in the mix talking to people, you know, from the life, from the space, and she practiced alongside of them. It's, again, anthropology text, reads like a grimoire. Very good. All right. So the last section in my library is composed of modern day practitioners who are writing about their style of conjure. I find this super useful. I was in Arizona with Big Sis for her graduation, and it was like a mini vacation. And she and I went to our first botanica that was ran by like actual black folks. I don't know about y'all, but I find it like hard to go to metaphysical shops not run by black folks, or at least not run by Folkmagic practitioners, because they just don't have what you're looking for. That's that's another reason why I decided to work from scratch as much in my practice, because metaphysical shops out here that are not geared toward folk magic practitioners will have like end table with some books and mostly just have tons and tons of crystals. just tons and tons of crystals. They don't actually have what you're looking for. Anyway, so I was in Arizona with Big Sis, and the shopkeeper suggested that I pick up Old Style Conjure, Hoodoo, Rootwork, and Folkmagic by Starr Casas. Which is hella crazy, because in Mojo Workin, Starr Casas is one of those people that Katrina Hazzard said was creeping into a space not hers by birthright and was just capitalizing on spiritual practices without having an understanding of, the plantation style or traditional style hoodoo. But the shopkeep recommended it, and I got the book anyway. And cousin, oh child, I had to put the book down for a minute, because Casas goes into this diatribe of why it's okay for white people to practice hoodoo, and who better to honor the memory of the enslaved people of America than the descendants of the people who enslaved them. And I was like, what did I just get myself into? Like, I don't want this. I don't need a reason why it's okay for someone outside of Black America to practice hoodoo. Like, I don't care. I don't care whatever reason they're going to come up with. It doesn't matter. If it's authentic, and if it's if you're from the culture, if you're from the space or from the space adjacent, like, that's enough, right? Like, I don't need to know. I don't need to have this long theoretical dissertation as to why it's okay. I don't care, and it's off-putting, if anything. So yeah, I put the book down for a minute, and after like a week or so, I decided, okay, I liked the shopkeeper. They were a practitioner themselves, and they really recommended this book. I'm just going to give it a try. And whatever I don't like, I just won't take, right? Or if I think opposite, or if I feel opposite of what this Starr Casas is saying in this book, then that's also something I've learned. I don't want to practice this way. That's a valid lesson as well. So yeah, after a week, I decided to pick it back up and just glean the useful information. And it seems like Casas grew up in the tradition, or at least she had someone teach her. And she has some pretty useful insight on how to set tables, how to set your lights, how to create altars, do candle work. She has a whole section on petitions. Like, she has a section on hoodoo spirits like Mother Moses, Hajan. She has a section on blessed waters. Like, she was talking the talk. I'm telling you, she was using language and vocabulary that was very authentic to conjure, and she broke it down really well. And she sounds like someone from the Backsticks. Like, she sounds like somebody from the deep south, from the area in which Conjure was created in America. So I guess I kind of placed Casas in the same mental category as Your Wood from Lucky Mojo or AV from Hoodoo Delish. Like, whatever is useful, if you can use it, and then leave the rest for someone else. But if you're just starting your practice and you want like a 1, 2, 3 breakdown on how to practice the things that you're looking for to practice, Old Style Conjure, Hoodoo, Rootwork, and Folkmagic by Starr Casas is not a bad place to start. Again, just remember, like, you can take the technique and leave the theory behind. Just take the technique, leave the theory, because it's too much. It's too much. The next book in this section is Stephanie Rose Bird's book, Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones. This book is the epitome of modern hoodoo techniques. My girl is using crystals and honoring Orisha outside of initiation, and all of the stuff that you can think about when it comes to modern hoodoo, it's in this book, truly. So if you're trying to be traditional, like super traditional, she's not the one for you. Stick to the anthropology. Even stick like to building a practice. Even stick with Starr Casas. Starr Casas, her book, like it says in the title, leans more towards traditional style. But if you are okay with modern techniques, Stephanie Rose Bird's Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones is definitely a way to go. Let's see. She's got incense blends you can use. She's got a Florida water recipe that is pretty good. She's got hot foot powder recipes, like all the things that you're looking for to build up your practice. It's in there. She even goes into the like history behind mojos and why it's important to build your own mojo on your own hand, and like the idea behind that and the spirits behind that. And she references some folks who were actually like writing things down about the topic of Black conjure. Like, it's a really good book. So if you're into what she calls conjure craft, which is like working from scratch, getting your hands in, forging for your own stuff and creating things to use in your practice, literally conjure craft, then this is definitely the book for you. It's pretty good for sure. The last book I have in this modern section that I want to talk about, because it's not the last book I have, it's just the one I want to talk about, is Modern Conjure and Southern Rootwork by Orion Foxwood. So Foxwood is a multi-tradition practitioner, and from what I've read and listened to him talk about online, he would not claim himself a hoodoo. Like, and the techniques that are directly inspired by or are from Black practitioners or from hoodoo, he will call as such, which I appreciate for him doing. He did, however, grow up in Appalachia and in Appalachian folk magic traditions. Mountain conjure is another way of saying Appalachian folk magic. And this book details what he learned from his mother and other mentors growing up. Besides giving practical instructions on doing graveyard work and the type of working altars you can utilize in your practice, he also goes into theory about source and about conjure that any conjure person, no matter their niche, be it hoodoo, Appalachian style, granny, whatever, can really dig their teeth into, right? He talks about concepts of like covering yourself with spirit, that's capital S spirit. It talks about nurturing and cultivating your own spirit as fundamental tenets to any practice, that you want to get into. And honestly, I've yet to read a modern book on conjure, be it mountain conjure or hoodoo, that discusses covering yourself and using and understanding your own spirit in the way that he talks about. Like, most of the times when people talk about spirits and conjure, they're talking about the outward facing ones, the ones that you contact, the ancestors, the High John, Mother Moses, John Henry, the Crossroads man. Like, they're talking about those kind of spirits, but the majority of his book is talking about cultivating your own spirit, and that until you understand, touch on, heal, work in alignment with the spirit that is inside of you, you can't really do work on others. Right? So, and I love that so much. So I was already, building this spiritual system in my practice, because as you all know, I am non-theistic. I'm not a Christian by any means. I'm pagan only in that I honor the earth, but like, I'm not following pagan religions like Norse paganry or Hellenism or any of that other stuff. So I was trying to cultivate the spiritual system in my own practice that would help me, give me a shorthand on how to work. And I was talking about that to some shopkeeper, like in the Folkmagic space here in Baltimore, and she recommended Foxwood's book, and she said that Foxwood had talked in her shop before, and she knew him personally, and that this might help me. And for sure, Foxwood's book definitely helped me to solidify my own personal system. And I guess in the end, it made me feel like I wasn't crazy for approaching the spiritual work I do the way that I did. Right? Like, that I wasn't crazy for trying to look at things more of like understanding spirits as human conditions, and understanding their roles in my life, and understanding that I am also a spirit, like I am a walking spirit on this earth. That really helped me to just, I don't know, put the final touches on what I think is like this era of my practice. It really helped me move from novice to more advanced practitioner, for sure. So that's, I think 7 books. That's 7 books out of CoCo's Conjure collection that were influential in my practice as I started and as I progressed further into my practice and building up, my hoodoo spirit in myself, and how I express that. What I think is so unfortunate is that some of us are, the first of our line, or we're trying to reconnect to a magic that was lost to us. And especially online over the last couple of years, there's this whole push that, it's not right if you don't have a mentor. It's all oral. You can't, nothing's written down. You have to, it has to be, handed down person to person, etc. and so forth. And although I believe that is useful and integral part of hoodoo, is to speak to people and to learn from them and to understand them and how they practice. I don't think that that's the only pathway to success here. Especially in today's day and age where, like, you've heard my entire family story. My grandma is talking about grits on legs, candles, and praying to not die, and my mom is talking about my great grandmother Bert speaking to her and this ancestral voice in her mind. And if you would have listened to talk to me and my sister, we did not know of those things, right? Like, it wasn't shared with us, that kind of stuff, because as time progressed, our idea of spiritual practices have also progressed, for better or worse. So, like, that's something that was lost to me, and I wouldn't have known to ask. I wouldn't have known what I was even looking at or looking for if it wasn't for these books, some of these books that I'm talking about here. I feel as though although it's important, the oral tradition is very important to hoodoo. I also feel like we can't, especially the older stuff, we can't toss away the work that our ancestors have written for us. Like, this is ancestral stuff. The informants in Harry Hyatt's book, Zora Hurston herself, like, those are the ancestors speaking to us through the page. And just because they're long gone and dead and we're not talking to them through tarot cards or bones doesn't mean that what they're saying is not helpful, not useful, not important. So if anyone out there tries to discourage you from studying hoodoo with a book, if they try to tell you the only way that you can have success is only solely by speaking to someone and only having a mentor, I find that that's not true. You need to have a little bit of that. You need to have the oral tradition as well. You need to hear the stories. You need to talk to people. You need to work alongside them. I do believe that's true. But I also think that without these written texts, without the written texts, most of which I've spoken of already, without modern practitioners talking about writing down what it is that they're doing, where they learned from, and how they practice. Without that, I feel like in our modern day and age, conjure, folk magic tradition would have died out. It would have died out a lot sooner than the trajectory it has now, you know. So I encourage you, cousin, to treat hoodoo, to treat your study of it like a college course. That's what I did. I treated it like a college course, to find texts from sources that you that are reliable, sources that you understand where they came from, to read them, and then to challenge what they're saying against how you're practicing or how your family practices, or from what you see other people doing, and also what you feel comfortable with. Honestly, there is no one style of conjure. There is no one style of hoodoo. It is not a monolith. There is no strict dogma to follow, no strict doctrine to follow. So it's okay. It's all right to blend your practice, your research, your practices, information from living legends, talking to people, and from reading the words of others. That's okay. It's all right. Okay. If you haven't been here before, you don't know what's next, so I'm going to tell you. You've reached the part in the podcast where I take a question from Reddit or Facebook and I answer it. So this whole post started with me answering a question from Reddit or Facebook. That's how I got on this tangent of books. So I'm only going to do one this time out. This question comes from Facebook. The post says, "It ain't hoodoo without Bible verses." And then someone responds, "I disagree. What came first, the people or the Bible? Let's talk." So listen. Traditional hoodoos are going to tell you that the first conjure person ever to walk the earth was Moses. He saw the burning bush, part of the Red Sea. He had the staff. He was the first conjure person. They're also going to say that there is no hoodoo spell, hoodoo work that can be done without a psalm attached, especially candle work. And listen, conjure in a black context like racially black context, has been around longer than black people have been introduced to Christianity. Now, some people are going to be like, well, the African content had Christianity and et cetera and so forth. Yes, that's true. It was in Ethiopia, in Egypt, up to Rome, like, that area, sure. But the West Africans may have known about it. West Africa being where most black enslaved people came from, may have known about it, but it wasn't something that they practiced without colonization pushing it on them. And we just know that to be true, right? Like they only book they could read was the Bible. Well, they weren't taught to read and write. The only book that they had access to was the Bible. And it was like one or two of them may have been able to read it. And they could go to church or spiritual gatherings. And what they did that spiritual gathering was their business, but outwardly showing it looked like, church, and the black church coming out of the plantations in the South also influenced conjure very much so. Black American conjure, I should say. So to answer the question, I think the people came before the Bible personally. I think like conjure was there, and then it was recognized that as from a Christian perspective, hoodoo, conjure, Moses was the first one to participate in conjure. Now, does that mean that, like, in that list of books I gave, I should have added the Bible? No. No. And some people are going to disagree with me on that, and that's cool. I'm non-theistic. I do use Psalms in my work. I do have a Bible on my altar. It was my great grandmother's Bible, one that she gave me, I should say. So I'm not saying that there isn't power in the words. I think I speak about that on, I think like the third episode of this podcast was called Speak Easy. And I talk about that. I talk about how there's power in the words in the Bible for sure. But I do not think, I know that you can practice hoodoo without biblical text. That you can be a hoodoo without being Christian. Like, I know that to be true. If you would like to incorporate the Bible into your practice, go for it. If you just want to use the Psalms, there is I think it's just called the Book of Psalms. I'll add that in the show notes as well. Where not only does it list out every Psalm, but it also tells you what the Psalm can be used for in a conjure perspective. And in the back, it gives you a full index as well as other prayers you can use. So if you are a Christian and you would like to center your hoodoo practice around biblical text, you can. Just know that it's not the end all be all. And I think we see that. We see that with Orion Foxwood. He talks about the Bible and the practice in Mountain Conjure and Appalachian Folkmagic. But he himself, as I'm reading his text, does not talk about using the Bible in a conjure way, in a practice. Stephanie Rose Bird, same thing, does not talk about using the Bible. She's connecting with crystals and Orisha and other pagan deities, Kemetic pagan deities as well. She's not connecting to the Abrahamic God. Zora Hurston in Hoodoo in America, she breaks it down as to, the Obeah man in the Caribbean, but she also talks about, like, here's a hoodoo who's Catholic, here's a hoodoo who's Protestant, here's a hoodoo who doesn't have any religious affiliation whatsoever. Like, so we know that it's possible, and if you want to, you can. Just don't feel as though, and don't let anyone tell you that in order to be hoodoo, you have to also be Christian. Like, It's not true. All right. We've made it to the end of the podcast. Cousin, thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate you, and I feel so blessed that you stayed with me this entire hour. Please be sure to like and subscribe and follow, leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening. I would truly appreciate that. Before we go, I would like to let you know that cousin, you deserve the world. Truly, you deserve the world. That it's okay if you are new in your practice and you don't have a mentor, or you don't know how to speak to your living legends and how to gain information from them, and how to ask for their stories. That's all right, because ancestors before us, living legends now, are writing about their practice, writing about the practice of those who have passed, writing about how things were traditionally done, how we can use that now in a modern era. Right? So your practice can be full, and you can use all resources at your fingertips. And I also want you to know that if you call for your blessings, cousin, they will come to you. I'll see you guys next time.